course it does. So then I went back to singing songs anyway, you know. You know, so he was probably, who knows what him and Ma had going on at the time. Maybe they were struggling for bills or something, and I was old enough I wasn't living with them then, you know. And they were still young enough, they didn't need me around for lawn mowing and shoveling and all that kind of stuff, you know. Although, right around that time is when I started doing more shoveling. Because, you know, Dad being a drinker and stuff, he didn't get out there and do it. And when I come by, he'd be like, well, hey, since you're here. He'd be like, hey, since you're here, why don't you get out there and shovel that sidewalk, you know? We're like, all right, Dad, I got it. You know, and then, it was in the summertime, he'd be like, why don't you go out there and mow that lawn for me? I said, you know what, Dad? Sounds like a deal, you know? I would never, at that point in my life, I was never negative or like, it's your lawn, you mow it, you know, or nothing like that. If my parents, if they asked me to do something, I did it, you know, because I figured all the money and time they put into raising me and stuff, it's the least I could do when they got older, you know. So I actually forced myself around them when they started getting older. And Dad, he liked his privacy, so he'd tell Mom sometimes when I'd come up for the weekend, well, when's Darren going home? You know, he'd be quiet for the first couple of days because he knew I was, if it was winter, he knew I was doing the shoveling or working on the car or changing the blinker bulb or doing something, because Mom had a list all the time, you know. And sometimes he'd probably tell Mom, yeah, if Darren comes up here, I didn't know it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't add a few things to the list. And he would sometimes. He'd just tell me, you know, mow or get out there and mow the lawn or something. And I'd hear him say, when's Darren going home, you know, because he likes his privacy. I get it, you know. But I forced myself to be there a lot. I'd just show up, even if they wouldn't answer their phone or that. Sometimes I'd just show up, knock on their door, and I'd tell them straight out. They'd answer the door, and I'd be like, hey, you know, I tried calling, didn't get a hold of you and stuff, and I just thought I'd stop by. And if you guys don't feel like company, that's fine. I will turn around and leave. And if you're okay for company, well, then I'm going to stick around for a while. And then Mom, she pretty much gave me the rundown, you know. She'd be like, well, I know Dad said it's fine for you to stay, but you know, if it was late, she'd say, you know, stay the night, but maybe you could head out tomorrow sometime. I'd be like, all right, Mom. You know, because she knew I wouldn't hurt my feelings or something, you know, unless she could read me pretty good too. Like now, if I was sad and I needed to be around people, she could tell. You know, so then she'd just be like, you're okay, you know, you can stay here or something, you know. But most of the time, I try not to get under their feet and give them their privacy. You know, but as they got older, and I heard, like the one time I heard Dad say to Mom, when's Darren going home? Well, later on, I wouldn't just barge into it. He had his little den, that was his little bunker. And I'd go knock on the frame of the door, even though he'd keep the door open most of the time. I'd go knock on the frame of the door, say, hey Dad, and he'd say, yeah? It'd be alright if I come in and talk with you a little bit? So of course, you know, you always can, you know. And he'd say that even if he really didn't want the company. Then he got comfortable with me though, to where he finally got to where he'd be like, I don't feel like visiting right now, you know. Like, all right. But when he said, yeah, I sat down there and I told him, I said, you know, Dad, I know sometimes you don't want me here. And he said, don't say that. You know, because even though it was true, he didn't like how it sounded or something. And anyway, so I said, Dad, you know, I said, can't help it, you know. I said, I already lost my biological dad, my stepmom and stuff, and I said, you know, I said, ever since I lost my dad, dad died. And when he died, I knew he was sick. And the night I went to work, I only got to spend a little time with my dad that day. And I knew he was going to die that night. He knew it and I knew it. Gave him a kiss goodbye and told him I loved him. Told him to get better because I didn't like seeing him like that. I could tell he was in a lot of pain. And anyway, so shift. I made it to the hospital that morning after he had already died, you know. So they rushed him to the hospital in an ambulance, but there was no saving him. And so when that happened, I really wished I had more time with my dad, because we had started really getting to know each other so well. I got everything I really needed, you know, to understand it all. So I'm thankful for that. But it still would have been nice to have a lot more time to have some more fun with him. But so I told my stepdad, you know, since that happened, I said, I felt a little shortchanged. And I said, I don't want that to happen with you and Mom. You know, I said, so, and I said, because odds are you're going to die before me. And he said, well, Jesus Christ, I hope so. And I said, so Dad, you know, I said, I know sometimes you want your privacy, but I said, I'm going to keep coming, even though I know you like your privacy. I'm going to keep showing up, and if you don't feel like company that day, well, then I'll leave. Well, if you let me visit a little bit, I will, and if you want me to go, I said, you just tell me you visited enough, or tell me to go, and I'll get out. You know, I said, but I'm going to keep coming, Dad. I said, because I want to spend as much time with you and Mom as I can before you're gone. You know? So he understood it. So from then on, he kind of tolerated it a little more, but I paid more attention to it and tried not to stay too long, you know. So he understood my feelings and I understood his, so I think we found a pretty good compromise in there. Even though sometimes I'd stay just a little bit too long where I could feel it starting to I could feel his feelings change, so then I'd try to hurry up and get out of there, you know. And I'd give him a hug and kiss goodbye and tell him, I love you, Dad. You know, maybe I'll see you next week or something, you know. It changed later, though, because when they got older, you know, I really kept coming to mowing lawns and snow blowing and all that kind of stuff. And then where I knew it really changed is I left there one night, and I was there a lot more then, because they really did. They were getting older and really needed me more. And I didn't realize he could feel his health diminishing, but I understand it after the fact. I understood it. Because I went to the casino to play pennies one night, and I'm playing pennies, and I got a message from him saying, Darren, it's Dad. You better get your ass home. And before, when he told me to get my ass home, he meant me to go home to my house. But this time, he meant I better get my ass back to their house. And near the end, he started doing that more. If I left, he didn't want me being gone long. And then he called and leave me a message, you know, when you come home. Well, I didn't understand it then. And then I started to understand it. That there was a reason he wanted me to be there more. Didn't want me gone long for shorter periods of time. So then once I started shortening my period of time that I'd be away from there, he got okay with it. As long as he knew I was only going to be gone a couple hours and come back. And what it was, he never said it, but I know what it was. He could feel his body changing, and he knew his time was coming. And he didn't want Mama to be alone when he passed. And I know that's what it was. And once I started understanding that, that's when I knew, and I didn't have to say it to him, but I knew it was coming. And I told Mama to call the girls. They came, and he died that night, you know. But, yeah, there's a whole bunch more I was just blabbing up a storm, huh? 7 minutes or something before I get to Holiday. And this is a really long video. I don't know if it's been... Sometimes it cuts it into like a 15 or 20 minute video on its own in the editing, but I don't know, maybe I'll make this one just one really long video, because I haven't made a really long one for a while, and I can just make it a nighttime go to sleep video. Although I've been talking up some pretty good storm. I got pretty good stories in this one, so I'm glad. It's been different for me, and I'm glad I'm getting more used to the camera and used to telling stories to the camera, when I say to the camera, I mean to you. But it is a camera, so I got to get used to it more. My friend Mandy, who I love dearly, I love her with all that I am, and I would just want that woman to have the best life. We have so much fun when we're together, and we get along so well. We could sit and watch paint dry and be alright with it. We just enjoy each other's company. Anyway, I haven't got to spend time with her in a while. I kind of miss her. But when she's right with me, well, then I tell her a bunch of these stories. She likes hearing the stories. And one time she said to me, "Gosh, you got so many stories." I said, "Well, it's all true stories I've lived in my life, and I like telling them, I like sharing them. I guess maybe it's the Indian in me, The Indians used to always pass down their stories, to carry on history. Yeah, I miss her. Well, Lord, I hope you bring Mandy back into my life again soon. It'd be nice to spend some time with her. Right now, I can't really afford to go get her. If I was working and stuff, I'd call her up more often and say, "Hey, let's go out and do something," but I can't afford that right now. In the summer, before the cold weather came, she'd call me and want me to come over and go for a walk with her, because we'd do about anywhere from 3 to 5 mile walks with each other a lot, and go walk in the park and look at the critters and the flowers and all that other stuff. I didn't voice to her how tight my finances were, but I just told her, I got to start really paying attention to my finances, because I hadn't gotten back to work yet. So, as much as I love her, I had to really watch my money. And so, when she wanted me to come over and go walking with her some of the last few times, I was like, "Well, no, really can't afford it right now." I said, "But if you want to come over here to this side of town," I said, "we go walking over here, go walk around the lake," or, She did a couple times, but she can't afford it either. She ain't been working either. She was a stay-at-home mom and went through a divorce. I think she's a little scared about getting back into the work world. Years ago, before she became a stay-at-home mom, and I used to have her come to work with me through a temp agency, and then she was real comfortable with that. We had a lot of fun. Oh boy, I'll tell you a story about that sometime. We got time now? Yeah, what the heck? I might as well tell the temp story. So, this warehouse that stores medical files and stuff. Well, one of those stand-up forklifts, you turn down the aisles, and they had runners with wheels, so you could go down the aisle and then go up and down, pull files and put them on your pallet, whatever, or put the files back, whatever. And I'd actually worked there before the temps a long time ago. And then what happened is when I wasn't working there no more, well, one of the guys must have cranked the wheel or something too tight and jumped the wheel, hit one of it was like 3 stories tall of files on shelves, stored shelves. And when the forklift kicked, it hit one of the main beams of the shelving and bent it, buckled it in, and all that weight from all the files made it tip over, and they went like dominoes through the whole warehouse. The warehouse was split into 2 sections, And that whole second section went like dominoes, just the whole boom, 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 down. Millions of dollars damage, you know. And this disaster cleanup company came in there, and that's how we got the job to the temps. And we had all them roller racks that you roll boxes down, and we'd lay them on top of the piles of the stuff, and we'd go pull files and try to keep boxes that would try to tape them together to keep files together and stuff, roll them down, and I'd been working there a little while, and Mandy wanted to work, so got her in there, and they gave her a good job. She got to stand at the bottom so she didn't have to climb up. She wanted to climb up there, but they didn't want her to have to do that hard work or risk getting injured, so they were all gentle. You know, so they gave her, she got to hold onto the clipboard and write down, you know, each box, the file number, and stick it on the pallet, you know, and then number the pallets and keep all the paperwork on it, you know. And we had a lot of fun at that job. But what's really cool, almost a holiday here, so I gotta get this out quick. I don't know what made me do it, but we'd all go on break together. We didn't like have separate breaks. We'd go as a team. Then when they said break time, everybody came down. We all went through the other side of the warehouse, which was empty, so it would echo really big in there. And then we'd go to the break room, and all 20 of us or whatever would sit down in there, have our lunches or that, and then we'd all go back to work together. Well, I don't know what made me do it, but we're going through, and I walk faster than most people. So I'm ahead of everybody, and I turn around and start walking backwards because I used to jog backwards and stuff. And as I'm walking backwards, I start, because the echo in there, I holler out, Deo, Deo, you said Deo, you know, because it's got that echo in there. And I just held that note, Deo, until all the guys started going, daylight come and me won't go home. And I went, big rapping and I'm gonna have some fun. And then they'd all go, daylight come and me won't go home. And it was just so cool. And Mandy just, her eyes got so huge, and she was just like, couldn't even believe it was happening, you know. And so when we got to the break room, she says, did you guys plan that? And I said, no, I just started doing it. And they just all fell in line. You know, I've always kind of had, if I get the guts up, I've always had pretty good leader instincts in me, and people just tend to follow in with it. But anyway, yeah, so she just couldn't hardly believe it. So we still talk about that to this day. And for a while, I think she kind of doubted it and thought maybe I set it up. But that was really cool. But thanks for watching. Now that you can see me, like and subscribe. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one.